Hello, everybody. Welcome to my workshop, Help, I'm Burned Out. I'm assuming that you've joined us today because you're having the same feelings as many of us are. My name is Wendy Sweeney. I am the manager for PANDA. We are your ABE disability specialists. You should contact us anytime you have a student enrolled who discloses they have a disability, or you may suspect they have a disability or learning challenges. Gail mentioned the participant handout. There's an interactive handout that follows the slides. So be sure you print that up so you can be jotting things down as I'm going through the workshop. And then there were two other additional handouts that are for you to look at later, just for added information. One's on stress management and the other on positive behavioral interventions. So print those up if you would like that. And then I just want to remind you of our website. I'm hoping many of you have checked out our website in the past, but this is where you can go to learn more about our services and get information about various disabilities, instructional strategies. We have our adult learner intervention, and there is some, under our forms tab, there are a lot of tools to help you with your students. And then there's a lot of community resources under each one of these categories if you need to refer students. So let's talk about what you will be learning today. First off, I'm going to be talking about the signs and symptoms of burnout, and then about how prolonged stress impacts teaching and learning. And then I will be talking about some strategies to help reduce burnout, and then talk about some positive behavioral interventions for students. I know some of you may not be teachers, and this was originally developed to present to teachers, but I'll try to make it relevant for you for support staff as well. And then at the end, I'm going to have you make a plan to implement some strategies. I'm going to turn my video off now at this point. All right, so first I just want to start out with a little humor here. This is distance learning in a nutshell. I'm assuming many of you are doing at least partial distance learning. Maybe some of you are doing some in person, but we've all had to juggle. We had to drop everything last spring when the state was shut down, and now this fall starting up again. Different programs I know have differing in-person or hybrid or all distance learning, but this is just a little bit of humor here. I did have a video, and that link is in your participant handout. If you want to watch the video, it's about 4 minutes. It can be pretty funny. But seriously, I want to say thank you. Thank you to all of you for all the scrambling that you've been doing, trying to juggle so many things. And this has not been easy for any of you, I'm sure. It's been hard. This is a new world we're navigating, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you for all you're doing. I know the support staff does so much work getting packets out to students and answering phone calls and juggling yourselves. So thank you all for what you're doing. We appreciate it. I really appreciate what you're doing. So let's talk about what is burnout. I'll start with a definition. Physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion caused by prolonged stress. And it occurs when you feel a lack of control, which is so true for most of us, I'm sure, and that causes a lot of overwhelming feelings, which can be emotionally draining. And also when there's unclear or overly demanding expectations with all the changes that you all have had to face. And then can also be increased due to lack of recognition or support of your efforts. I know you put in so much time and energy in juggling, to make it all work. So let's talk about why everybody's feeling burned out. First off, I just want to tell you about a Harris poll that was done recently on stress in America. 78% of adults feel significant stress in relation to the COVID pandemic, and 60% of adults are overwhelmed and need emotional support. So here's a lot of the reasons why all these ever-evolving school and world changes, including the pandemic and the economic impact it has caused. Many people have lost their jobs, are struggling. Then we have the racial inequities that occurred with the unfortunate death of George Floyd and the protests and riots that occurred afterwards. All of the district and ABE program decisions that are varying depending on where you live and what programs you're working for. And then we have the working from home, which can be very isolating. We're used to being around our coworkers and the students and interacting with each other. So you have that loss of physical contact, which causes some stress associated with it. And then I'm sure many of you are juggling multiple roles. If you have children at home that are also trying to learn on the computers, trying to do your job, trying to take care of your home. And then the teaching online, internet connectivity challenges, which just happened to me right before this workshop. My computer completely froze up. And so I got in here just in the nick of time, but I know that happens quite frequently. Learning how to instruct and engage students virtually. And then students have their own challenges. They are juggling, many of them juggling children at home, trying to manage their own lives. They may have added pressures of lack of employment and money and basic needs. So they have those things that they're facing as well. And then many students don't have internet access. And I know that has been a major problem, particularly in greater Minnesota. So let's take a minute. I would like for you to name one challenge which is causing you to feel burned out or stressed. And if you could put that in the chat box for me, and Heather Williams is going to read a few of them. So let's take a minute for that. Heather, you seen any responses in the chat box?
Yep, we've got them coming in. So one so far is lack of socialization, lack of conversations with coworkers, lack of student face-to-face contact. That's huge for a lot of us. I'm sure we love the students that we serve and definitely miss them. Yep, social interaction, not feeling like I'm meeting the needs of my students. Emails are becoming overwhelming. Folks are worried about catching COVID. But yep, Wendy, it's a lot of isolation and not being able to interact with folks.
Okay, great. Thank you. It's so true, like I was saying about the lack of interaction. And of course, COVID, we're all worried about COVID. It's on the rise. It's getting worse with the cold weather and all that's happening. And I hope none of you have tested positive or lost any loved ones, but that's also, of course, added worry. So let's talk about the impact of prolonged stress. Stress is something that is normal for all of us when there's a certain situation that comes across our path, like starting a new job, let's say, for instance, where you may feel stress initially, but that resolves itself. But it's when it's prolonged, meaning it's not resolving and it's continuing. And I think many of us are dealing with that, and it impacts us both physically and mentally. Physically, you can have headaches. It can increase your high blood pressure, which can cause heart disease, stroke. can cause sleep issues, and then mentally, emotions can be higher when you're stressed. You may be reacting quicker. You may cry easier. You may lose your temper easier because you're feeling overwhelmed. Um, and then anxiety and depression can happen as a result. So let's talk about what you can do about it. How about some tools to reduce that stress? We need to reduce the load. The first thing I want to say is just to be kind and patient with yourself. This is not what you were trained to do. This is not anything you were expecting. It's been ongoing, but we continually hear all kinds of information in our media about when the pandemic's going to end or if a vaccine is going to come. And we just don't know that. So be kind to yourselves. This is hard and it's okay. And remember why you got into this profession. It was to help other people. It's to help. And sometimes when you're in that helping profession, you're the last one on the list. So I just want to point that out. Secondly, it's important to be mindful of your thoughts. Our thoughts impact how we feel. And sometimes we tell ourselves things that simply aren't true. So be very careful about jumping to the worst case scenario or making assumptions, because that can really impact your moods. And so I want to encourage you to reframe your thinking, paying attention to what you're saying, like, oh, this is never going to end, and trying to reframe it to, okay, the pandemic is here. I don't know how long it's going to last, probably until next spring at this point. So how am I going to make the best of it? I need to be adaptable. I need to be flexible. I need to be creative. I need to think outside the box to make the best of this situation. And with winter upon us, I think that's going to be even more important to really figure out what you can do to help yourselves and make it more enjoyable. The other thing is to be able to express your feelings and your frustrations. I would really encourage you to find a vent buddy, somebody that you can call, that you feel safe with, that you can trust, to express these feelings and frustrations. Because when you bottle them up, we're kind of taught in this culture to just bottle it up and buck up. But when that happens, then typically things come out sideways, whether you lose your temper or start crying because you're not having a place to put it. And if you don't feel comfortable venting with a coworker about your day or a friend or family, then journal. I'm a big proponent of doing journaling, but it's the important part is to get it out of your mind and out to other people to share it. Also, it's important to cut out the negativity in our world. We hear a lot of negativity, a lot in the media, a lot of social media, a lot of information that is out there. I think about when I was growing up, it was a black and white TV and there were 4 channels that you could watch. And now we've got thousands of them. And the thing about it is that I've done brain research, and our brains are actually attracted to negative information, kind of like watching a train wreck, because it's a survival instinct that we have to look out to protect ourselves, to make sure we're okay. And the media knows this, and the politicians know this, and that's why there's a lot of negativity, because they want to capture your attention. So please try to limit your media. I don't even watch TV news anymore. I just read the paper. That way I can pick and choose what I want to read rather than have it shoveled into my mind. And also, I've been hearing from a lot of people that there's just so many technology ideas out there that either the district or programs are expecting support staff and teachers to try, and that can be really overwhelming. So try to, maybe thinking about one new thing you're going to try rather than just getting completely overwhelmed by it. And then there's always the physical. You're probably very aware of these, but just to remind you, deep breathing is so important. And sometimes when you're stressed, you forget to breathe. And the deep breathing exercise that I always promote is called 624. Just remember 624. So you breathe in for a count of 6, you hold for a count of 2, and you breathe out for a count of 4. And you do that 5 times. And this it can be helpful when you're trying to get to sleep. It can be helpful throughout the day if you remember to do it. Sometimes putting a post-it on your computer to remind you to deep breathe. Obviously, exercise, you all know that that's important. For some of you, you're not going to the gym anymore. You've got to be creative again. Winter's coming upon us. Whether you run up and down the stairs or do some jumping jacks or sit-ups, anything, even for 10 minutes. Counting to 10 is a way of calming down. If you're upset, your rational brain kind of checks out when you're upset. And so counting to 10 gives you a chance to calm down before you react. And then obviously yoga and meditation, a lot of those are online right now. That can be a great exercise and thing to be doing on a regular basis. And here's another strategy. Thinking about the silver linings. What is going well? Reminding yourself there are a lot of positives out there. So take a minute, please, and put in the chat box something that is going well for you right now. And take a minute for that.
We've got our first one coming in, Wendy. It says able to get outside and walk. I totally agree with you, Karen. No traveling in cold weather or snow to work. It's nice to not have to commute.
Absolutely.
The support of coworkers. People are saying they feel healthy and well and their family is safe and healthy. More family time. Saving money on gas and not spending as much money, although Amazon is definitely a problem for me.
I'm with you on that, Heather.
More dog time. I love it because mine is sleeping behind me right now.
All right, well, that's great. Thanks for those. Let's move forward, but it's really important for you to think about identifying those silver linings and thinking, if you try to even think of what is going well every day, one thing that went well today. And you can do this with students too. All of these strategies I'm talking about, you can do with students or family as well. These are all strategies for anybody. So let's talk about a few more ways to lessen the load. It's really important to find some work-life balance, which you might be laughing right now as I say that, because it's very, very challenging, and I know that, but let's talk about some ways to help you with that area. The first is to say no. It's really important. I think most of us just knee-jerk a yes when people ask us, hey, can you join this committee or attend another meeting or do some kind of a social Zoom meeting, and you just knee-jerk yes, and then afterwards might regret that you did. So I always encourage people to come up with some time buying phrases, something that just use it regularly so that it can give you that time to think about, do I really want to do this or not? So time buying phrases such as, I'll get back to you on that, or let me check my schedule. And then that gives you some time to think, do I really want to do this? Do I really have time to add another thing onto my plate? And then if you decide that no, you don't, then you just respond by saying, you know, I have another obligation, or it's just not going to work out for me this time around. And you don't have to give extended explanations to people. And the second one is delegating duties to others, whether that's to another coworker, to at work, you know, delegating away some things that aren't a priority to an EA, somebody, a volunteer. Delegating those duties away. Same with at home, delegating duties to your children or your spouse to help keep the house going or cooking or whatnot. And then asking others for help. Reach out, ask them. If you're just spent, you you need to ask other coworkers, ask the rest of your office staff. I need some help. I'm just really spread very thin. Ask for help, but don't feel ashamed to do that. And if you need help beyond that, I'm going to be talking about some mental health help also for you in a little bit here. And just taking care of yourself. You need to rejuvenate. You need to relax. Like I said, oftentimes we're last on our list. Asking for space. This is something that I've done with my husband. It took me a long time to ask for it because I felt like it wasn't something I could ask for, but it was the best thing I could have done. Is I just say at the end of my workday, you know, I'm going to need some space. Give me an hour so that I could just don't have to be conversing anymore or, you know, helping somebody else, and just encouraging some resiliency. This is an unusual time. This is something that we have to rise above. And there's a great article that's on your participant handout, the links at the end, about resiliency. I would encourage you to read that. But taking care of yourself, doing something you enjoy every day. And then focusing on what you can control. So often stress and tension is due to focusing on things that are out of your control or you're feeling out of control. And it's really just a simple strategy is to focus on what you can control. So I want you to take a minute to jot down again in the chat box, and you can write it on your participant handout, 2 things you can control and 2 things you cannot. For instance, I cannot control the pandemic. I have no control over that virus, but I can control wearing a mask, socially distancing, living where I go and what I do. So take a minute to jot down what you can and cannot control and share it in the chat box, please. We have any coming in, Heather?
Yep, I can control my actions, but I cannot control other people's actions.
Very true.
I can't control politics, but I can control my own exposure to media. I cannot control others' negativity or constant changes at work, but I can control my attitude and how I respond to the changes.
Awesome. All right, thanks for sharing. Let's keep going. So I wanted to touch on some ideas to help you reduce the virtual burnout. Take breaks. Breaks are so important to rejuvenate and refocus, both for you and for students. So whether you're teaching or you're on support staff, taking those breaks, getting up, moving around, doing brain breaks. Brain breaks are some fun activity you can do with students. I think Gail's going to put a link to some brain breaks for you to use in the chat box, but it's a way to do a quick little break that can be kind of fun and engaging. And another way to take a break is to use the 20-20 rule. Every 20 minutes, stand up and stretch and look away from your screen. Staring at your screen all day really causes stress on your eyes and your back and your body. So I want you all to do that right now. It's been about 20 minutes. Everybody stand up and stretch. And I'm going to time this for 20 seconds. And you know, 20 seconds is not that long. It's as long as it takes to wash your hands. And if you think you can't do it every 20 minutes, doing it every 30 minutes, but just making sure you're doing it. Is everybody stretching? Okay, that was 20 seconds. So there you go. Didn't even take that long. Another thing that Gail Rutan and I, she shared with me that she bought a stand-up desk, and they're on sale at Costco right now for $79.99. So I went online, I bought one, it's being delivered. If you can afford it, Getting a stand-up desk so that you're not sitting all the time. I feel like my chair is a part of my body right now, so that's another idea. Bringing some structure and routine, whether you're teaching or working to your day, starting and stopping at the same time, doing the same tasks at the same time, because that we all need routine in our lives. It's really important, and it does reduce the feeling of chaos and stress. Thinking about using different platforms, I know sometimes it's hard to teach students different platforms, but by mixing it up or just using audio instead of looking at faces, we're not used to looking at our own faces in Zoom meetings. It kind of does, it's irritating, and no, it can be somewhat distracting. It's not like when you're in a meeting, you're not looking at yourself ever, and you can be looking down, you can be taking notes, you can get up and stretch, but you can't do that when you're in a Zoom. You feel like you have to be on all the time. And so think about doing audio every once in a while for meetings. And then turn off your technology at the end of the day. Give yourselves a break. We are so flooded with technology and phone and social media and all of that. Just take a break. Turn it off for an hour at the end of your day so that you can get away from it. So I'm going to switch gears here a little bit and talk about signs of student burnout, because students aren't going to tell you they're burned out always, but you may see this in some signs, whether you're teaching or if you're working in the office and communicating with students, but these may be signs of some burnout for them. Some withdrawing, like showing low attendance, not showing up, procrastinating, not picking up packets, for instance, not following through and telling you when you reach out to them, they're not communicating, probably means they're very overwhelmed, have their own life issues going on. If they are on class, they might be short-tempered and take frustrations out on others. They might look really distracted. They may show up late or leave early. And there could be signs of alcohol or drug abuse. This is really on the rise. Alcohol, drug abuse, domestic abuse are all on the rise. And so being on the lookout for that for everybody, because it's important that they get the resources they need. And we have a lot of community resources for chemical dependency evaluations if needed. And let's talk about the student reactions to stress. Usually behavior is driven by three different things: to get something like attention, power, approval; to avoid or escape something like the situation, the teacher, the classwork; or to have control, which is what a lot of people are looking for, which is why I said focus on what you can control, but sometimes you're trying to control things you don't have control over, because that's a way to cope with anxiety, is to think you can control things that you really have no control over. So, but it does reduce chaos and lessens anxiety and stress. And then setting some boundaries. I talked about the consistent routine. So whether you're teaching or like you are at working and support role, just having that consistency is so important. Starting and stopping your day at the same time. You know, when we had students in the school, we had, you know, everybody started at a certain time, you went to lunch at a certain time, you took breaks at a certain time, and it becomes blurry when you're doing it from distance learning. And so, but continuing with that routine is really helpful for you and for students. And then somebody had mentioned like they're overwhelmed with all these emails. How about answering your calls and emails just at designated times of the day, so it's not distracting you from the work you need to be doing? So whether if you're teaching, saying my office hours are, you know, from 5 to 6 or whatever it might be, then that's it. Don't answer them any other time. Don't be available 24/7. That's too much. And not working beyond your hours. Don't work for free. Excuse me. And then also obviously setting some clear expectations and rules. We all need rules in our lives. That's why we have speed limits and stop signs and highway speed limits, because that's how we function better as a society. Everybody operates better with rules. If you're a teacher, setting some rules in your classroom, what's tolerated, what's not tolerated, having cell phones off. Somebody had said that Their student was in bed every time for class. That's not acceptable behavior. So coming up with those as a class, as a group, what are clear expectations and what are those rules? And building relationships is another one. This is so important. Like I was saying earlier, how so many people need that emotional support, and we all need that emotional support. So, and your support role with your coworkers, if you're not seeing each other, trying to connect with each other and get to know each other on a personal level. With students, making sure you get to know who they are and helping them connect with other students by doing activities, like, you know, star of the week or peer interviews, those kinds of things to get to know each other. This is for those who are teachers. We have a great course that's free, that's on our website, called Teaching ABE Students About Mental Health. It was developed by my colleague, Colleen Crosley, who's a teacher at the Adult Academic Program. It's so essential right now to teach students about mental health and to destigmatize it. Redirecting any poor behavior that might be happening. This is relevant for coworkers or students or family members, but redirecting that when people are misbehaving or doing things that are not okay. Obviously picking your battles, but if you were in a classroom, you could walk up and touch their shoulder or point to a seat if they're walking around. But online, it's a little harder. You have to use some kind of a cue, and maybe that's part of the rules and expectations you talk about, that, you know, if you're interrupting, I'm going to be pulling on my ear to remind you that it's not okay to be interrupting, things like that. And then obviously acknowledging when students are using positive behaviors, especially ones that may be on occasion showing poor behavior. And then for those that are, sometimes people escalate into, you know, a point of blowing up. And so wanting to just briefly talk about that, using some de-escalation techniques. And again, this is relevant for a student coming into the office to a student in a classroom situation, but pay attention to escalating behaviors. Typically, people don't just blow up, although it might look that way. So it might be kind of subtle, like they'll start pacing or looking nervous or not showing eye contact. But if they are escalating, stay calm. Don't try to reason or argue with somebody when they're upset. That only escalates it because they're emotional. And then avoid continuous eye contact. People can feel threatened when they're upset if somebody's giving them continuous eye contact. But then just speak clearly and simply and let them have a choice so they feel like they have some control. Do you want to take a break, or do you want to count to 10, for example? And if they do continue to escalate, you ask them to leave. You either cut them out of the Zoom, you know, we're just going to give you a break and you come back on in 10 minutes, or leave the room if it's in person. Take a break. And then just to save face, if this does ever happen, you want to have a meeting with that individual by providing kind of a safe, trusting environment, showing concern, asking them what's going on in your life. It might be something that happened that didn't have anything to do with work or the classroom. Asking them what happened, what you can do to help them, let them be a part of the solution. What is it I can do to help you? And then validating, I'm sorry this happened. I want to understand. I know this is hard for you. And then making a plan for those future tension triggers. So if this is something that they're struggling with, okay, we're going to come up with, I'm going to put my hand up to remind you to, like, you're escalating, you need to take a break. Teaching them also some calming strategies that we talked about, like counting to 10 and deep breathing. And then giving them some mental resources if they need it. So I really want to point out that asking for help from a professional is a strength, not a weakness. If you had a broken arm, you wouldn't not go to the doctor. You would go to the doctor, and just because mental health is hidden, you can't see it, it doesn't mean that you or a student or family member shouldn't be reaching out for help. And there's so many ways you can seek that help wherever you might feel comfortable, at least initially. All therapies, most therapy, I'm doing therapy in my other job online virtually and by phone. Most people are not meeting in person right now, so it's very easy. For those in greater Minnesota, I've been hearing that there's lack of providers in your area and long waits. But for virtual, for me, for instance, I'm licensed into the state of Minnesota, so you could contact somebody in the metro area where there might be more providers and actually do those virtual and phone therapy sessions. Anybody licensed in the state can provide those services. There's free 24/7 hotlines, self-help books, cell phone apps, and websites. I want to take you to I didn't put this in the handouts that you got today, but you can come and get it right here. This is on our website in the mental health category to resources. And I have a lot of resources in relation to COVID-19, but second paragraph down where it says click here, this is a list of resources I developed just for you or your students. There's these free crisis lines 24/7. The suicide prevention, many of these have translators in many languages. You can get on chat, you can go on their website. They make it very easy to contact. There's mental health crisis responses. If a student ever expresses suicidal talk, you can call a crisis line. Each county has crisis response teams. They will actually go to the workplace or to somebody's home to do an evaluation. And all the county numbers are on the link here. There's teletherapy websites you can go to, but like I said, almost all therapists are doing online therapy right now. So there's some sliding fee for students who I know don't have insurance. I have Metro and Greater Minnesota, other resources. There's the substance abuse that I mentioned, and lots of cell phone apps. Most everybody has cell phones that you can use to help reduce stress and anxiety. And then self-help books, tons of those. So print this up for you to hand out to students if they need it, or you can forward it to them. But on this, I have gobs and gobs of resources in here, a lot COVID related, but then general resources. United Way First Call for Help is a good place to go if it's not a crisis, to find out how people can get help. So if you don't see something in here and you know of a resource, please let me know and we'll add it to our website. But I wanted to point that out as a very important resource. Okay, how are we doing on time, Gail?
We have about 2 more minutes, Wendy.
All right. Sorry, this was quick. We had to do this very quickly, but the last activity I would like you to do is to jot down 2 positive behavioral interventions you will try to manage behavior and reduce tension, and then 2 strategies you will try to reduce burnout and stress for yourself. And like, for instance, we talked about a variety of things in this quick session with the positive behavioral, like setting boundaries, building relationships, redirecting behavior, calming strategies, and strategies to reduce burnout and stress for you, reframing your thoughts, expressing feelings, focusing on what you can control, saying no, using those time-bound phrases, for instance. So please jot those down. And if you are willing to share at least one of them in the chat box to end everything here, we would really appreciate that. Let's take a couple minutes to do that and read a few in the chat box. Heather, or any coming in on the chat box?
We just got one. I will try to build relationships and redirect poor behavior.
Great.
Ask for help and learn to say no. People are planning on taking more breaks.
Fabulous.
Expressing their feelings and frustration, working on building relationships, turning off technology.
Yes.
Teaching the 6-2-4 breathing strategy to students is a great one too.
Okay, great. Thanks, Heather.
Mhm.
Since we're out of time, I'm sorry we can't read every chat that was shared. I do appreciate you all sharing. Thank you for your time on this quick session today. I hope you all stay healthy and well, and I hope you learned at least one tip today to help reduce burnout in your lives and for your students. Enjoy the rest of your conference, everyone. Thank you very much.